So Dr. Martin, the live stream is just about to start, just so you know.
Sorry, just want to let you know.
No, thanks.
And that was definitely not to stifle your conversation, just so that you're aware. So we're live streaming now, just so everyone knows.
Hello.
Dr. Thurman, we've started the live stream, just so you're aware. We are, Terry and Philip, we're streaming now.
I just sent the correct link, so it might take a minute for everybody to get in.
Dr. Green, we're live streaming now, just so you're aware. Live now, just so you're aware. Dr. Jadali,
I don't want it all, so y'all get some. Oh no. No.
Hang on right there.
Sorry.
Right now.
My hands was
Dr.
clean
Bland
though.
hers isn't muted, Dr. Bland.
Okay.
Okay, Mrs. Hogshead just got the new link. Oh, I just saw you on here.
She's coming up.
Okay. There you go.
It is 1:01. And we do have a quorum, so I will start our meeting. And I'd like to say, please, board members, remember our meeting norms. If you need to review them, they are on our agenda. It's on our agenda for today. So I want to call the meeting to order. Due to concerns for public health and safety, the Ferguson-Florissant School District Board of Education will use Zoom, a video conferencing tool, in lieu of a face-to-face meeting. Under provisions of the public meeting laws of the state of Missouri, the board must adopt a roll call vote, an agenda that includes the time, date, place, tentative agenda for the meeting. A copy of the notice and agenda for this meeting was posted on Thursday, October 1st, 2020, on the district website and at the administrative center at 8855 Dunn Road, Hazelwood, Missouri. May I have a motion to adopt and approve the agenda as posted?
So moved. Second.
Should call for the vote, please.
Aye.
Mrs. Hogshead says aye. Let's see. Dr. Martin?
Aye.
No, I said all right because I was muted
Oh.
and now I'm fine.
Then let me call for
Donna
it.
looked at me like I'm crazy.
Let's start all over again.
Mrs. Hogshead. Mrs. Hogshead.
Aye.
Ms. Bush.
Aye.
Doc-
Aye.
Here.
Dr. Graves.
Aye.
Dr. Paul Walker.
Aye.
Dr. Thurman.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you so much. The administration recommends the following items under consent. May I have a motion to approve the agenda, the consent agenda?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Am I still mute?
I heard
No.
you.
Okay.
Can you call for the vote, please?
Mrs. Hogshead.
Aye.
Dr. Martin.
Aye.
Ms. Bush.
Aye.
Dr. Graves.
Aye.
Dr. Paul Walker.
Aye.
Dr. Thurman.
Aye. And I just want to say welcome to everyone who's tuning in out there in YouTube land, our cabinet and all of our board members. We're going to be discussing our goals, strategic plan 3.0. And at this time, I would like to open up for discussion as we talk about the Board of Education Superintendent. He will help us to discuss and prepare for our strategic plan.
What about the consent agenda? Sorry, Donna. That was
We
first.
Did we just not vote on that?
Oh, I thought that was approval and roll call. My bad. See how much I paid attention? I didn't know what I was voting
No,
for.
wait. We just voted on that.
My bad. My fault. I was like, okay.
Mute yourself, Kevin. Okay, Dr. Davis.
Yes, ma'am. So in light of our session this morning, and I kind of think, so we're ready to present. Kevin has the PowerPoint ready for talking through the strategic plan work that we know we need to get done. But I want to make sure that this time is used productively, because we started on our goals this morning in my evaluation. And certainly we have the strategic plan process that we're thinking about that we will unfold. In fact, some of the stuff that I heard this morning, we have already planned out in terms of the areas. So there's 6 areas in the strategic plan, equity being the acronym for economics all the way to your community. What I would like to know is, do you want us to proceed with as we had planned, or in light of our conversation this morning, do we need to pivot at this moment and focus more on those particular goals in case we need to think differently about the strategic plan? I guess what I'm saying is, I don't want to get into this and go deep around some of these pieces in light of the conversation we had this morning and close, so that we can make sure that those goals are tightly,
Aligned.
connected. My goals and my evaluation are tightly connected to, like you say, aligned to the strategic plan. So
Can I ask you this? One of the things that I'd like to know is, you guys have started this work. I'd like to hear where you're coming from. I'd like to know if we're meeting up with some of the stuff that we talked about this morning. So maybe it would be a good idea to kind of just hear where you guys are coming from and see where we come together, and maybe where there's some areas that we may not have meshed as well. I don't know how the board feels about that, but that's just one board person's opinion. So what is your thinking? What do you like? What would you like to do, board?
I was going to say with that, Donna, to me, kind of what Courtney said earlier, really.
Speak
Dr.
up a little bit louder. I'm not hearing.
Can anyone else hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So to go with what Courtney said earlier, kind of, if we could kind of get an understanding of equity in terms of this year's goals, so we can make sure that we are reporting out the correct things for strategic planning, not necessarily like the 3.0 version, but kind of like the 2.5 version.
Yes.
So we can kind of get a clear understanding to make sure that we're spending the rest of the year and not really focus on what your new goals would be, but kind of where we're kind of at. So when we each report out our areas, we're kind of clear on what we're supposed to be focusing on. Does that make sense? At least from
Yeah, because, and that's, I almost said 2.5, because that's kind of what this is. But are we looking in the same areas? Are we trying to achieve the same goals? Where do we depart? Where do we, so I would say I'd like to hear from them, and then maybe we can, I mean,
So,
again, that's two people. Anybody else who wants to?
I mean,
I'd
well,
like to hear their presentation. Sorry, Courtney.
I mean, and I was just gonna say, I think I'm in agreement with both of you all. Donna, I would like to hear what they're planning, for the simple fact of just to make sure that we are aligned. But Kevin already mentioned what I was requesting from the last meeting, because I just want to make sure. I mean, I think as a board, we need to know what are the goals for 2020, 2021.
Yes.
Like, what is that focus? What are they working on? And so if they can tie that into the report that they're about to give, if they can say, okay, and this is what we're currently working on, and we're going to move forward with this. This is our thought to move forward. So I don't know what the presentation looks like, but if we can just kind of tie both of those in together, because I don't think it's going to change drastically.
I don't either.
But I'm just hoping if we can tie it all in together.
Yeah, and make
I have
sure that it's including restorative, ABAR, all of those, choice phrases.
I do have a question for Dr. Davis, and given this morning, and again, I don't want the board personally to jump too far ahead to say what a strategic plan 3.0 will be. Do you believe that your timeline of given the conversation this morning has changed or will need to change to get to strategic plan 3.0? Or do you think the work that you've done up to this point, you're ready to present a draft of some information to get feedback from the board, I guess is what I'm asking? Or is it drastically changed?
Yeah, to the latter part, I would say no, we're not ready to present any kind of draft form. What I am prepared, and Kevin will lead this discussion, is to talk about the plan to the plan. Because that's kind of where we are in terms of goals for this current year. So I continue, as I have every year, to operate off of the goals the board has set for me before, and that's 1.2, 2.2, 3.3, which is vision, academics, and managing resources. And so that's how I've operated, period, until something changes. And obviously that'll be now different when we get our new goals in place. So today we'll talk a little bit more about the plan in terms of collecting the data. We'll also talk about some of the equity pieces that we've been working on. Kevin will present, but we also have all the other team members who are here too to be prepared to talk about and answer any questions you might have. So I think from this morning, this conversation, some things will shift, obviously. They'll have to, but I think it has a little bit of value. I mean, this presentation, Kevin, I don't know, maybe 25, 30 minutes, I guess it would be. And then we can just open it up for some conversations. And then based on what we talked about this morning, I think we can make some adjustments along the way, and you all can see where we are after that.
Our goal is to be done at 2:30.
Yeah.
So we can work within that time frame.
Yeah, I think we can probably done if we could just let Kevin go through and talk about where we are, and then you can just write down any questions you might have. That way we can go on through it, and he can share, where we are right now. And then we can have discussion, and then you all can give me direction from there.
Are we in agreement, board? Okay, let's go forward. Let's move forward.
Fine.
Kevin, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. At one point earlier this morning in the conversation, it was mentioned about, I guess someone asked, I can't remember if it was Leslie or Scott asked if I was a part of things back when we went through that process that was lengthy back in 2013 into 2014. And, I was in a different role at that point in time, but yes, I was involved with that. And I was in a lot of those meetings with Experience on Demand with Gigi and Steve as they led us through that process. And so we do have that experience. That work that was done back at that point in time is what we've called Strategic Plan 1.0. And there was a process. I need to move where I have you on my screen so I can see the slide. But we went through a process there that lasted from October through July. And ironically, here we find ourselves in October again, with a goal of implementing this by July 1 for the 21-22 school year. And so you can see the process that is there, a period of information gathering, a period of development, and then time in there built in for revision and presentation to the board. And we have that in a timeline that I'll share with you toward the end of this presentation here. If you have looked back through the plan that was developed initially, it had this sort of pyramid of components that was built into it, including a vision, mission. It was based on our values, our goals, and then strategies from those goals and initiatives and projects that help to accomplish those things. Strategic Plan 2.0 was the next step. So the timing, of when Strategic Plan 1.0 was implemented was July of 2014. You know that at that time, Larry LaRue was our acting superintendent. You also know that that was 1 month before all of the unrest and all of the experience that we went through in this community when Michael Brown was killed. And so, so the work continued on. Dr. Davis was hired that next spring and began work in the district the summer of 2015. And so during that first year, as he worked with his transition team, worked with cabinet members to set the plan moving forward, Strategic Plan 1.0 was modified. One of the things that we learned, from various people as we were going forward was, while the goals were good in Strategic Plan 1.0, nobody could remember, and we had a conversation at one point with organizational health, and just that conversation around how many people know the goals and can remember them. And so, so Dr. Davis took those goals, essentially kept the same goals, but created that united acronym to make it easier for people to remember. We put those posters around in all of our facilities. And so Strategic Plan 2.0 was in many ways an adjustment to 1.0. It wasn't a complete new process. It wasn't a complete new plan, but the goal areas were adjusted, the indicators were adjusted. And there was a comment earlier about the plan being put on a shelf. And I think that, that was a concern of everybody at the time that Strategic Plan 1.0 was adopted, was we don't want this to be, a static document that lives on a shelf. And what happened was the monthly board reports that you do shifted during that time, so that your reports at each month's board meeting are now tied to those goal areas. And I heard what you're saying, that, there needs to be a look at how to make those most productive, how to make them most informative, how to adjust that so that you get what you need and so that the community gets what it needs. But I think in some ways the plan has become such a part of what we do that maybe we've forgotten that it's out there, because it is no longer a thing that's out there, but it's woven into the work that we're doing. So this is the 2.5 version that you were talking about. Last winter, the board adopted this version that is in between, where we took United because of in April of 2018, when the board adopted the equity resolution, because of the work that the board has done up to this point around equity, trying to move this equity work to the focus of what we were doing. Dr. Davis led the move to shift those goal areas from that acronym of United to this acronym of equity. Still maintaining the same mission: will empower all students to achieve their potential by cultivating a love of learning in an environment of respect, accountability, and responsibility. The same vision: all our students will flourish to become lifelong contributors to the success of the societies in which they work and live. And then each of those 6 goal areas tied to economics, quality schools, which had been called decorum previous to that, understanding our academics component, infrastructure. This relates to, and I should have said the economics part, obviously, that financial piece that was raised as a priority for the district. Infrastructure tied to that, but also, you know, all of our physical components, as well as other infrastructure related to technology and things like that. Talent, who we're hiring and who we're retaining, how we're doing that process. That equity lens that was presented for a first reading addresses pieces around this and all of these 6 goal areas. And then last, your community piece, the stakeholder piece. And I should say that, you know, in that process of strategic plan 1.0, there were town halls, there were work groups, there were focus groups and study groups, and that process brought in people from all parts of our community, whether it was community members, business owners, elected officials, students, parents, teachers, other staff members, administrators, the board. And so it took that collective voice to come up with those, the mission, vision, and goals based on the values that were expressed by the people who were participating in it. I believe you've received a document that shows an alignment of various goal areas. And if I can show that to you here just briefly. Can you see that okay on my screen? There are, and this was raised again previously, there's a need for the strategic plan to reflect these various goal areas, whether it's the CSIP, whether it is the equity strategic plan goal areas that are currently in place, the superintendent's evaluation, and all of those pieces need to align so that it's not disjointed and so that it really can help us move forward in the way that we all want to move forward. So strategic plan 3.0, you have shared some priorities that you have around finance, around student support, and around academics. And so those priorities rose to the top in your conversations. And I think that it makes sense that as we begin to engage other stakeholders in the conversation, that we have that history of strategic plan 1.0, 2.0, 2.5. And we have these current priorities for this board that's in place now as we move forward. You know, we've talked about this at several different points. Yesterday, we had a great kickoff to the district's work with ANET and the work that we're doing around professional learning for equity, for anti-bias, anti-racism, and also for social justice. And I would say, you know, even for liberation. And so in that conversation, the video was shared that we've all seen before with Michael Jr., know your why. You recall there's the man who is asked to sing, and he sings Amazing Grace, and he sings it, and then he's asked to sing it as if it really means something to him, and a bunch of other pieces are laid out there, and he belts it out with feeling, you know, because he connected what he was doing to his why. And I think the strength of this strategic plan is going to be in it being connected to our why, our collective why. Obviously yours as the leaders of the district, but also the why of our students, the why of our staff, families, community members, and all of us coming together to share our hopes and dreams. I think that that's an overall kind of theme that could emerge through this planning for strategic plan 3.0. You know, FFSD 2025. What not only is this a short term, as has been shared, things that need to be done right now, that sense of urgency, but also something that goes over time too. What do we want to see 5 years from now? What do we want to see 10 years from now? What's your vision? Because to the point that was made earlier, board members shift, board priorities may shift, but if we can have this plan that is stretched out over time, that will help keep us moving along the stream in the right in a direction that reflects what the community wants. You know, there are limitless possibilities. Our why, the future of our children, our community, that urgency of now, and then also in this equity piece, and that you know, racism is more rampant, and now is the time to act. And you know, what do we want to accomplish? And you know, our district has taken a stand, and it's reflected in that that work that launched yesterday with ANET, but it goes back to the board supporting that march and rally after George Floyd was killed back at the beginning of summer. And so those are all things that are part of our why. It's students taking their seat at the table and having voice. You know, and what better architects to have build the future than the ones who will live in it. And so that student voice in this process is absolutely crucial. You know, never forget the past so we don't repeat it. Moving onward, you know, creating a canvas for the future, and that latitude to like dream and design and create something that is greater than what we have so far and where we are now. As far as the who, you just decided as a board which goal areas of the 2.5 plan you would each be working with. And so in the area of economics, that is led by Laura Madrusik and Dr. Joycelyn Pugh Walker on the administrative side, but Dr. Kevin Martin will be leading as a board member from that side. Under quality schools, Gary Beals, Amy Cacciatore, and Dr. Benita Jameson are the administrators who are working and leading that work around quality schools. And then Dr. Sheila Powell Walker is leading from the board side. Under understanding, our new Deputy Superintendent of Instructional Services, Dr. Jana Parker, Dr. Adrian Bland, Dr. Lisa Hazel, Dr. Deanna Kitson, and Dr. Benita Jameson. All four of those ladies supervise principals and school leadership. And then Dr. Courtney Graves is working with understanding from the board members' perspective. Infrastructure, Larry LaRue, Terry O'Neill, and Dr. Farhad Jadali are the administrators tied to that goal area, and Scott Ebert is the board member tied to infrastructure. Under talent, Philip Boyd and Liz Davenport are the administrators tied to that work, and Leslie Hogshead is a board member working with talent. And then lastly, under your community, I am the administrator who is working with that stakeholder goal, and Tiffany Bush is the board member who is working with me on that area. And so just thinking about that question about, you know, what should your monthly board updates look like when you report out the work that's going on in the district related to the strategic plan, at least 2.5, your administrators should be meeting with you and sharing the work, a collaborative conversation about what's going on, a time to ask questions, a time to get updates, and then and move forward. This is something that you know, Dr. Davis wanted to be sure was a part of what happened in the work that he did with this transition team when he came in, that that the board had board members who were more intimately aware of the work that was going on, not in a position to get into the weeds or to micromanage, but so that you were informed and then could share that out with the rest of the board on a regular monthly basis. And so that's what has gone on. And that's probably a part of why it may not feel like the strategic plan is a thing, because it's woven into what you're doing and what we're doing on a regular basis. So as we think about this, whose voice is involved in this plan, and I believe that this is important to everyone who's here at the table, and that is obviously your voice is the Board of Education. You know, you were elected by the community to lead the work of the district, to set the course. So your voice is absolutely crucial, but the voice of students, because this is who all of this is supposed to be for, their families, our staff, and then our community members. And so all of those voices need to be a part of the plan and the planning process. Um, you know, we're thinking about questions that we would ask stakeholders as we engage in this conversation. You know, as we design for the next 5 years for the district, what are your hopes and dreams in that particular area? Each of the 6 goal areas, or whatever goal areas you establish, that you'd like to see for the district. Who are the key players in service of those hopes and dreams? What resources will be necessary to accomplish these hopes and dreams? What evidence will we look for? How will we progress monitor our work? How will we celebrate success? How might we retool from lessons learned? And I think that those are all things that are on the top of your mind too, because you want to see not only a plan, but you want to see us being faithful to the plan, executing the plan, and moving the district forward in a direction that you, the community, all stakeholders see as important. You know, what are some of the hopes and dreams that we have? And intentionality around career pathways, expanding STEAM into the elementary, and especially, you know, even focusing on elementary math, expanding opportunities for our Black male students, as well as all of our other students, but especially for our Black male students, fiscally responsible staffing. You know, from that conversation that we had previously, we know that finance is a priority that's rising to the top. You know, and then as we think about hopes and dreams, you know, where could we be with, you know, new facilities, with improving the facilities we have, so that our students have the same opportunity as students everywhere. Um, so the process, here's a proposed 3.0 process. Um, we have begun this process today of the board reviewing the strategic plan goals. That seems like something that probably needs more attention as we move into this. There'd definitely be a process of stakeholder engagement. It would be initially virtual and led by those goal champions. So um, as we did in strategic plan 1.0, we had meetings with key stakeholders around each of the areas. You know, people maybe in the community who have business acumen, who believe, who are able to help guide our thinking around finance, or community members who are involved and want to help guide the conversation around, you know, stakeholder engagement around that community piece. Parents letting us know what they need. You know, even our our website, our logo, the things that we did to rebrand the district several years ago were guided by the voices of parents who said, I can't find anything. And so even right now in this time where we're virtually learning and COVID is such a huge factor, you know, we created a single page as a place for people to go to find that information. And all that's based on, you know, conversations I had with parents who said, I can't find anything. It's in too many places. And so we created this kind of a central clearinghouse for information. A part of the process would be data collection. You know, we have a lot of different tools that are available to us. We've been using Thought Exchange extensively. Dr. Jadali shared a survey out yesterday using SurveyMonkey. We have Google Forms. We have town halls. We have advisory councils. Dr. Davis has a student advisory council, a parent advisory council, and a teacher advisory council. And then even within that teacher advisory council, he has created some smaller groups, had smaller conversations so that people really have a chance to have their voice heard. And so all of those are tools that we will use to collect data around these goal areas, or the areas that the priority areas. After the data is collected, it'll be analyzed. The board will review the data. We'll work on a plan revision. We'll share that that revised draft plan with the stakeholders who have been engaged to get their feedback. present a draft plan to the board, and then go back, make any revisions that you seek afterwards. And then that plan would be approved by you if it meets your expectations. There was a comment at one point, and it's not specifically woven into this, but the idea of those of board members being engaged in those stakeholder engagement opportunities will help, but also an opportunity for board members to review the data as we go along, so that we don't get all the way down one track and then find out that we were on the wrong road. We have a draft timeline in place right now. Let me kind of zoom in here, and actually let me zoom this one, and I'll get this. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see this better.
Yeah, can you make it a little bigger?
How's that? So as we flesh this out, events that are tied to each of the goal areas will become color coded. But right now, this is just kind of the big overview of the process. If you see the color coding here, this kind of dark salmon color these are events in the calendar that would be tied to the strategic plan process. Back in January of this year, we applied the equity to the strategic plan and developing the strategic plan process. Then we basically have put things on, our focus through February and March was so deeply aimed at how we were going to make those adjustments to closing our buildings and students learning from home, teachers working from home and teaching from home, that while this is absolutely crucial and important, the priority in that moment was how do we keep students supported, and how do we keep honestly, how do we make sure that our students are being fed? How are we meeting those needs? How are we meeting the other social emotional supports? And people did a great job of pivoting for that, but it put this whole process really on hold until the point where we are now. As I mentioned yesterday, we had our first session as a district with the Achievement Network. Dr. Davis received a lot of positive feedback from teachers and other folks yesterday on that work and our shift from we have done a lot of work at the district administrative level board around equity, anti-racism and anti-bias and social justice. We're now taking that to the classroom level, and so that's going to be a big part of what we're doing. Today we're doing this strategy meeting to talk about rolling out the process, and then over these next few weeks we'll be working, brainstorming how we're going to use the tools best to get the information that we need to inform you to guide the development of the strategic plan. We'll begin engaging groups, students, teachers, families, community voice. We'll begin collecting data, town halls and advisory council, thought exchanges and Google Forms and SurveyMonkey. November, we'll continue to do that community engagement and data collection, and that will continue on through December. And then in January, we'll analyze that data. And of course, as the data comes in, we'll be analyzing it as well. But January will be a time where we'll be looking at analyzing the data that we have. And then in February, then planning and writing some summaries, starting to develop a draft, and then likely in February present a preliminary draft to you of what the strategic plan 3.0 might look like. And then after that, then share that out with stakeholders so that they can see that the feedback that they have given, the insights they have given their thoughts, their hopes, their dreams are all woven into this plan. And that it's not just something that the administration's creating, it's not just something you're creating, but it really is truly a collaborative community effort to move our whole community forward through the work of Ferguson Florissant School District. In March, we'll continue to engage our stakeholders, and we'll also continue to develop the plan that will continue on into April. April 6th is the next board election. There'll be board reorganization somewhere there in April. And then we'll need to have, another follow-up planning meeting to share that data with the board at that time. We'd love for the board to be everybody who's here today, but the board changes over time, and the board changes with each election cycle. And so we want to be sure that the plan that is approved, hopefully in early summer, is the plan that reflects the desires of the board that's in place at that point in time. In May, the plan would be to revise and prepare the strategic plan for resubmission to the board. And then in June, present the board for, present strategic plan 3.0 to the board for your approval, and then implement that plan July 1 with the start of the new fiscal year. And then this would be an ongoing effort over time. Again, not a static plan that's created once and done, put on a shelf, never to be looked at again, but to be an integral part of the work that you're doing, that we're doing, and that everything we do is guided by that plan. Jump back over here.
While he's moving back over, if
You
you're
still
not
hear me?
speaking,
I'm
if
getting a
you could
message
host,
that it's
you could mute.
that my audio is not working. Can you give me a thumbs up? Are you able to? Okay. So I'll stop sharing my screen there. So that's a draft strategic plan timeline that I think allows us to engage fully people who, Dr. Graves, you crack me up. It's a timeline that I think allows us to fully engage all of our stakeholders to be meaningful in including their voice in the work that moves forward. It allows us to develop the plan thoroughly, and then to have it in place for the start of the 21-22 school year. So I know I kind of went through that quickly. I wanted to respect your time and not belabor the points, but at this time, I would like to turn it back to you for questions or direction or wherever you'd like to go, Dr. Thurman.
Opening this up for questions and comments and.
I got a question. I guess for me, I'm still trying to, and that was just going back to my original point in the beginning. For each of the areas, are there direct goals under each of those areas? And then what are those goals? And so I was just trying to look through some stuff, and especially in the stuff that we had already received. I didn't see what goes under those particular areas. Like, what were those goals? So say, for instance, under the finance, what are the finance goals for this year? Under achievement, what is it? Under understanding, what are those goals? So where is that piece at?
Yeah, that's so if you pull back up, and Kevin, you can probably do this with the strategic plan we've been operating off of. For example, in finance is always to increase reserves, and the goal is 1%. per year as much as possible. Understanding was always the accreditation component of it. So there were, several, each of them have already somewhat smart goals that we've been using for the last, several years. Now, the document he showed you earlier that had, the strategic plan, he actually had United and he had equity sort of juxtaposed right beside each other, but also that through line with the evaluation, the 3 indicators that the board has been using on me. So those are still the same. Can you pull that up, Kevin or Heike?
I apologize. I lost audio from you. I couldn't hear the conversation up until Dr. Graves' comment about where those goals or something like that. So let me share my screen again here and see if this is what you're looking for. If it's not, let me know and I'll find what you're looking for. Is this what you were looking at, the goals related to these United goals, the and equity, the maintaining accreditation?
Yep, that looks right.
And to go off of that, I think those are hopefully in the new strategic plan, there's clear benchmark goals and other goals that are more clearly defined as we kind of see in other strategic plans, because it's not all encompassing. And so I think hopefully in the new strategic plan that it will kind of clearly delineate kind of what other districts have done for a strategic plan. And so I certainly appreciate the timeline. I just had 2 points to make, or questions. I guess the first one is, I just want us to be cautious in feedback gathering while we're also going to be gathering feedback for returning to school at some point, I imagine. I just want to make sure we're not over being strategic in how we get strategic feedback from groups, because I'm sure we're going to be gathering feedback from parents as well about returning to school at some point. Just want to make sure they aren't getting bombarded with surveys and feedback, but being strategic in how do we gather the right feedback to make sure we're engaging folks, that they just don't get engaged because they're so engaged with other pieces. Is just one thing to think about. And I guess the other one is just when we're thinking about the 3.0 is just, again, making sure there's a clear scorecard. I know Janet shared plenty of scorecards with us, but making sure that is part of the process as well. So the board can.
Okay, so has anybody else's screen been taken over?
Put that back.
Okay. My only, and I won't say concern, what I would like for us to do is to be able to lay on top of your timeline, the timeline that we set with Janet Tilley at our meeting before, our earlier meeting. And I think that we can work through that. Janet, I know that you're on. If you'd like to chime in at any time, please feel free to do that.
Donna, I'll be happy to work with Kevin on all of that as well. And my only thought is that, the timeline they have given to you, I think fits very well with the goal that you've given to Dr. Davis.
Mm-hmm.
But just know that I will help to coordinate with anything that you need.
Thank you so much. Joe, did you have anything else that was going to be presented?
No, that was the the plan for moving forward as we get ready to sort of engage our stakeholders and the community. We've been, again, situated in COVID, of course, and what we already had in place, recognizing the need for shifting. And I think the conversation we had this morning is going to be quite helpful. I think what we have to do, and Kelly said this better than anybody else, is that, this is a time of grace as we move forward, because certainly we want things in place right now. But with, right, what has risen to the top of the list has been virtual learning and thinking about reentry, et cetera, and those pieces are still in play. But I think we can continue to simultaneously to move the 3.0 version forward by collecting data and analyzing and et cetera. I think the main piece is I had 2 groups I met with this past week, aside from our, kickoff yesterday with our ABAR work. I met with elementary teachers, meaning pre-K through 5 on Tuesday, and then I met with secondary teachers on Thursday to engage them. So I've met with teachers from every school this week just to keep them engaged in the whole process. I think that's critically important as we move forward because they're the ones who are on the front line and who are doing the work. And I think that as we continue through this process, especially with those areas you all identified this morning, I mean, it helps me because it's going to give me more clarity around how I can narrow my focus and thus the focus of the administrative team as we work through it. So moving forward, I think I have most of my charge. Certainly when I get feedback from Janet this week and then I sort of revise those goals, I think it's going to help a whole lot. And then I'll get those ready for us on the 16th. But I don't know, is there anything else that you all think we need to be thinking about?
I do want to ask this, the ABAR presentation is something that we can go back to, right? The board can go back and look at.
I can share
It was
Dr. Thurman, I can share the link to the video. We streamed it for our staff. We didn't have the capacity for everybody to be in the Zoom, so we streamed it for all of our classified staff, and so it's on our YouTube channel, and I'll share that link with you.
okay, because I would like to invite the board to go through and look at that. I wasn't able to join at the time that the district was doing it, but I would invite each one of our board members to go through and look at that service. We're paying quite a bit of money for this service, and I think that part of it, our responsibility will be to kind of be a part of it and to listen to it. So I just want to invite everybody at your leisure to go through it and watch it on YouTube. Other than that, is there anything else that we need to do today? Because I don't want to keep us on any longer than we need to be. What? No? Okay. So may I entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting? What? No motion to adjourn?
So move.
Motion. So move.
I want to say thank you again before you call for the vote. Thank you for all you board members for
So
taking
moved.
this Saturday. I want to say thank you to Dr. Davis, Janet, Kevin,
Second.
everyone, all the people who are hiding behind the scenes. We really, truly appreciate you. This is really hard work that must be done. We've got to get through this. COVID came and kicked our butts, but no, let me take that back. Thought it was going to kick our butts, but we're fighting back, and we're going to make sure that all of our kids are successful and that we're supporting our teachers and we're supporting our staff. So thank you again. And okay, now call for the vote. You're going to have to unmute though, because it's really important.
Sorry. Mr. Ebert,
Aye.
Mrs. Hogshead,
Aye.
Dr. Martin,
Aye.
TMI. TIM or whatever.
Oh gosh.
Ms. Bush,
Aye.
Dr. Graves,
Aye.
Dr. Paul Walker.
He's frozen.
Let it go. Let it go. She's frozen.
Got it. Dr. Thurman,
Yes. And not 2 minutes too soon. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks.